Hi everyone, and welcome to another daily objective. So Friday today, Freedom Friday. So we talk about Bitcoin. So if you pay any attention, you must have heard things about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is rising. Bitcoin is reaching one record after the other. And the thing is, you get a sense that most people who are interested in freedom and free markets are supposed to like Bitcoins. But most people, unless they have a very good understanding of the technology, they can't really follow what's happening. So the technologically literate person who is now speaking to you, I think I've lost 2 or 3 Bitcoin wallets. Luckily, they had the amount of money that would buy me probably a coffee, but it persuaded me that probably Bitcoin is not for me. But that's why we bring people who know more than I do. So besides my usual co-host, which is Jonathan Hoenig, a man of the market, but also a scholar, so no needing further introduction. Today we have a special guest. So we have Janina Lowisz. Hi, Janina. So Janina has been involved with Bitcoin and blockchain technology for some time because she has been interested on what this technology could offer and what, let's say, new roads it could open. So she has been around for some time. Nowadays, she's the co-founder of Kasi, which is a bank dealing with the business of banking and mostly with cryptocurrency companies, if I understand it well. But also she's interested in she's an advisor in the Governance Research Institute. So she brings some knowledge of this world and she can help us understand what is happening. So I'll throw to both of you a very simple question to begin with. So Satoshi Nakamoto, when he wrote his white paper around 2008, his vision was that, look, we live in a world of strong governments, of central banking, and this is not good news for money. This is not good news for the money you have in the bank. This is not a stable system. So he provided a system that was supposedly more rational, something in some ways simulating the idea of that you have something like a gold standard or a system that cannot be interfered with from the government or a central market. And my question to begin with is this. Could we say that in these very shaky times that we live in, we've been in lockdown for ages, we see the government spending like there is no tomorrow, is for someone who is interested in the ideas of freedom, this rise of Bitcoin, is it good news? And how would you explain it to a layman? What is a layman to understand from this meteoric rise of Bitcoin? Let's start with Janina.
Well, the thing is, well, first of all, thanks for having me. And I don't even know where to start with this huge topic. I could talk endlessly about it. But let's say first with one thing I have seen that the mainstream interest in this year in Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency is not much. If we compare the Google searches, then all the interest was in 2017. And today, the average person seems to be not even aware about the pump, just a much smaller group of people seems to follow it. And there is not actually the average person actually benefiting from it. And then also people with this high price seem to be put off as they think that, oh, now it's too expensive or this is unhealthy and it will come down. And so I don't really think that in these times that the average person should buy Bitcoin because it is so crazy up high and it is not sustainable. So on one side, it is a good thing that these days the layman seems to not get fooled by the pump, because as we have seen in the last, in the 2017 pump, then came the crazy, the crash of 2018, which had people lose their savings and end up being worse than before. So people should only ever have a small part of their wealth in crypto. I myself have only a small part of it in crypto, and I think that's the reasonable choice. That although I have been around for so long, I don't think that it will go to the crazy amounts that people are predicting it. Like a lot of people say, oh, it's going to 100,000, or it's going to 1 million or something. Yes, maybe one day it will, but should it? From my experience about the whole space, no. Because when we talk about replacing an existing system or improving an existing system, with what are we improving it? From my experience, I've been 8 years in the space, and it's full of criminals. When people talk, obviously everyone knows that, but when people talk about the criminals in the space, they always refer to the low-level scammers coming out of nowhere, whom no one knows, and who are just able to scam newbies. But what only people who have been long involved and know people personally, like I have lived 6 years in London, which has given me insights that I would have never been able to get if I had only ever followed everything just from conferences or from media, then I would say that the space is infested with criminals also among the popular people, the influencers. So a lot of them actually are dodgy themselves, and either have been stealing and scamming themselves, or they know about others and protecting them because they themselves benefit from it. So I have gotten excited about Bitcoin for libertarian reasons. Like back in 2000, I think January 2013, we had libertarian politicians and the first Bitcoiners in Germany, and they got me excited about Bitcoin and made me to take it serious. But over time has come the big awakening that no, this is not necessarily better. As it is now, it is not better because of the space as it is today. It could be better if Bitcoin was taken, how should I say? There has been so much happened in the history of Bitcoin or the cryptocurrency space overall that makes the current crypto industry not deserving of replacing the traditional system, because as it is now, it is not really better. But how it would be better would be if it was used as a tool to hold everyone accountable. Bitcoin was not made anonymous, but just pseudonymous. And it is actually not wise to do criminal activity through it at all. And there are the tracking tools which companies like ourselves have been using for years, and some coins which people used to think in the early days that they would be more anonymous, they are actually not. And they so what I would
before we go to the alternative of how it could be,
what I would like to see is just one thing. What I would like to see is that if people would see Bitcoin as a tool for freedom in a way that it removes corruption and other crime, that it holds everyone equally accountable, whether they are individuals or institutions. So it's not an anti-government tool, but it's an anti-bad actors tool, whether they are in government or any other institution, or whether they are individual criminals. So that's what I believe what the purpose of Bitcoin was, how Satoshi intended it, to hold everyone equally accountable and therefore make the world more transparent, fair, honest, and therefore more free for everyone. So that's my overall statement of what I would like to see and what I believe. So
makes sense. Yeah. So Jonathan, what we often say as objectives is that even if you have the best economic theory, the best economic tools, that doesn't guarantee something. So as Janina said, you can see something which is the technology, so to speak, that can lead to a freer society, freer economy, and then many things can go wrong when it comes to people's ideas and people's actions. So from your point of view, someone interested both in finance and both interested in free markets and freedom, what's your relationship, let's say, with Bitcoin, and how do you see it?
Well, I mean, Bitcoin is one of those topics, Nikos, and welcome, Janina. Thank you so much for being with us. We're happy to have you with us today. I mean, Nikos, it's one of those topics that, in my experience, almost on the level of immigration, really enrages people. They take it very personally. They're very committed to it, either for or against. And it's a big topic, as Janina almost kind of alluded to even just a little bit here. There's a couple of different elements here. There's the value of the technology, the so-called blockchain technology that powers Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. There's also the value which Janina identified, the value of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies themselves. And I think it's very sobering to hear this young lady who works in the blockchain, works in the Bitcoin world, if you will, say that it's an industry that's infested with scammers and that she wouldn't buy it at this level. I thought maybe it would be helpful for us to, because Bitcoin is perceived as a store of value, to take a look at what Ayn Rand talked about in terms of money. She said that money is not merely a tool of exchange, much more importantly, it's a tool of saving, which permits delayed consumption and buys time for future production. And she talks about gold as being essentially one of the few commodities that could fulfill that role as a tool of saving. So Janina, I guess my question for you is, what should Bitcoin's price be, if you will? I mean, is this a good long-term? Is this a good long-term method of saving and investing? I know you said people should only have a little bit of money, but what's to stop, for example, any other type of cryptocurrency coming, if inflation, if you will, and sapping all those assets from Bitcoin?
Well, if we look at the history, it has never been a good store of value because it's so extremely volatile, and that goes for any cryptocurrency. That people should always look at the history. There can be any time any of the big exchanges going down, or any big scam or whatever, or any important people getting arrested, like it happens all the time. Then so often the price just crashes from that one thing alone, and then sometimes multiple things come at once. So it's never been something that you could rely on as a store of value. Of course, when you look since the very beginning, of course it has gone up a lot, but does it deserve that? If someone wants to play around and thinks that it's actually like with the traditional system, Austrian school obviously says as long as the current situation continues with all the cycles, then the more it takes until the big cleanup and getting replaced with a more reasonable system, then the bigger the clash eventually will be. That if the economic system is not cleaned up, then the eventual bust will be bigger. So it's like now people talk with the corona and the economic crisis this year, talk again about, oh, now the collapse is coming. But people have so often talked about, oh, now the collapse is coming, and it never came. And so the current argument would be, oh, but the longer it takes, the bigger the eventual collapse will be. And people could say the same with crypto, that the longer the current situation continues, and I don't mean because of one reason obviously is that ethically it does not deserve to be that successful, because it's so infested with criminals and people thinking that death threats are the means to solve conflicts rather than going to court, that it does not deserve to be successful. I just wanted to talk, so that's just one aspect, but the actual thing is that Bitcoin BTC is not, in my opinion, the ideal. It's not suitable for the future, because it doesn't scale, and all the alternative solutions, what people think how it may scale, also are not being used, or they're way too complicated, or no one knows about it. So in my opinion, what actually has the best future, if only people would know about it, is Bitcoin BSV. So I support that. It's not very popular if we look at the crypto space as a whole, but it's what's closest possible following the Bitcoin white paper, or as Bitcoin was intended. And that always focuses on accountability, that that community is very much important to get the space rid of the criminals, and highlight the importance of Bitcoin actually as a tool to fight criminals. And that's what I think would fit also to Ayn Rand's philosophy, that it was not meant as an anti-government tool, but as a tool that improves the existing system and gets it rid of bad actors, be it from individuals or from governments. And so in that way makes everything more as it should be. Sorry.
Well, and I want to quickly just invite our viewers to ask a question. We have a crypto expert with us. Ask a question using the super chat feature. You can send crypto, but we'd certainly take any pounds or dollars, any other, to ask a question for Janina. But, you mentioned kind of the black market. Nikos, from what I understand, a lot of the places that crypto is most popular are places like Venezuela or North Korea, where people are, in effect, desperate to get out of that failing local currency. So from Nikos, is maybe that a way that crypto can promote freedom, is that, boy, if you can have a piece of shit North Korean won or a Venezuelan bolivar that's going back, put yourself in something that is at least a little more anonymous that can allow you to store that value. Maybe that's something.
Yeah, so and actually in my more naive, let's say, proto-libertarian days, I even wrote a paper on the Silk Road and how Bitcoin and crypto markets of the darknet could be almost a social movement of freedom. But then you get deeper into it, and it's what Janina says. So for every 3 people you see in the darknet who say, I'm a libertarian, we get organic cocaine from Colombia because we don't want to exploit the farmers. Yeah, you find many other people who they see just as a tool to do these things. Having said that, there's no question that in the developing world, it can play a huge role. So for example, many people cannot afford to open a bank account, but they can send Bitcoin to the people back home. Or I see in some countries in Africa, something like Uber, which flies under the radar of the government, and it takes Bitcoin. But because I'm not an expert here, and I'm so much more interested to learn rather than for a change to talk. Question to both of you. So quite often when I think about Bitcoin, I think about the equivalent of gold. And now that we're in difficult times, here's how I see it in my very naive and technologically literate mind. If I have a coin, let's say of silver, and shit really hits the fan, and let's say I have to hitchhike to Dover and then bribe a fisherman to get me to Calais because there are no flights and I have to go to Greece by hitchhiking. If I show him the silver coin, he's gonna get it. He's gonna, oh, okay, give me the silver coin and I'll get you to the other side. Whereas with Bitcoin, although many people see it as this, yeah, when really shit hits the fan, then you're going to understand how important Bitcoin is. Because it hasn't got this materiality or this, as Marxists would say, use value of the gold. And I know many Bitcoin people are going to disagree with this, but whatever, bear with me. Would you say that in times of crisis, Jonathan and Janina, I'll start with Jonathan and then go to Janina. Do you feel more confident with material, something like precious metals? Again, taking into account that there might be inflation, that the governments are out of control. So for this kind of special situations of out of the ordinary, do you feel more confident with precious metals that you can touch it, put it in your pocket, and if someone wants to scam you, you can fight with your hands for your life? Or with Bitcoin that most people don't really get it. Like, it's highly unlikely that you can bribe a government official, for example, with Bitcoin.
Well, I mean, Nikos, what you're envisioning, that lifeboat situation that basically, at least for those of us in the semi-free world, thankfully really never comes. I mean, people for years, people like Peter Schiff have made, a huge livings on kind of predicting these Armageddon scenarios where the ATMs don't work, the whole system's down, and those are left enough to have this emergency. I mean, life really doesn't work like that long term. But Ayn Rand did talk, at long term about what money needs to have, what long-term savings has to have. And she said, I think what I heard you alluding to, that money is a tangible value into itself. And it's something that remains unchanged over periods of time. It's something that always has been valuable for any number of reasons, including just its necessarily its beauty. So, I'm not a crypto hater. I'm a big believer in the blockchain, and I actually own a little bit of Bitcoin myself. Our viewers can ask about that in the super chat if they want. But in terms of storing money long term, I'd be very suspicious in holding money in something like Bitcoin. I'm a trader, I'm an investor, and it reminds me a little bit, I'll say, of bandwidth. In the late 1990s, bandwidth itself was a tradable commodity. In fact, the Enron exchange used to trade, buy and sell bandwidth. Well, what happened was the producers came around and they produced so much bandwidth that bandwidth is basically free right now. They can't give it away fast enough. So that's my long-term prediction for Bitcoin. I'm not a hater, but I think, as Janina said, you got to be very careful about allocating too much of your net worth to something that ultimately is a string of ones and zeros.
Imagine these poor people would put everything they have in crypto, and then it crashes, and they have like, it wouldn't be morally right to tell people from these poor countries to put whatever they have in something like BTC when it's now 20,000, and it just, no.
So we have a super chat from Mary Allen. Thank you so much, by the way, Mary Allen. We really appreciate it. So do people in Venezuela and North Korea even have internet access to use cryptocurrency? So my answer to that would be that it's mostly the corrupt elites. So it's not that the average person, they think, oh, I'm going to save in cryptocurrency. So I could even think of cryptocurrency as a currency for corrupt bureaucrats. Because who else in this country, definitely North Korea, would have access to the internet? But Jonathan and Janina, do you know any more about that? How cryptocurrencies operate in dictatorships? So one way is freedom fighters, for example, can use it in the way they can use the dark net. But could it be also that it's also used by the regime itself to do dirty business?
Yes, I think it's like how we said in the beginning, how we said about the dark net, that for every people who use it for acceptable purposes, that there are actually more that are using it for shady purposes. So I would say that that's how it would work with dictatorships. That and there again, it's like with the traditional system. If we had what we had earlier this year when it came out, how much money laundering and stuff like that is actually from dictatorships going through the traditional system, then why wouldn't it be the same in crypto, that you have institutions and dictatorships using it for dark purposes, same as with fiat, that the large that it are the large actors who are doing the largest criminal activities, be it through fiat or through crypto, and not the small individuals that are.
Janina, let me circle back to where we started. I mean, you the name of your business is Kasha.
Mm-hmm.
Kasha.
Yes.
So you're involved in this business. You're skeptical of Bitcoin price. You said some kind of rather negative things about some of the participants in the Bitcoin industry, if you will. So we'll start to kind of end where we started. Can cryptocurrency promote freedom? And
yes, of course it can. We have talked about developing countries, and a big use case for that are microtransactions. But for that, the cryptocurrency would need to be able to do that, and that's what if we see BTC as Bitcoin, then it wouldn't be able to send the tiniest amounts of transactions. So if someone really would want to use it in their day-to-day life, they wouldn't be able to do so. So this whole thing about BTC freeing the people is a myth, and it would need to have a different cryptocurrency that has the technical capabilities to enable small day-to-day transactions of people in developing countries. And it is possible like that if we just follow a Bitcoin as it was originally intended to be, because this whole enabling microtransactions enables so many use cases where people could earn small amounts of money, which for them in developing countries is a lot, but which with the existing system, be it fiat or be it BTC, they wouldn't be able to get and they wouldn't be able to send. So with something like I mentioned earlier, like Bitcoin SV, for example, I think it's the best example among all the major cryptocurrencies that we have today, that would actually be possible. And there are a lot of use cases already being built. I think there are about 500 businesses in their ecosystem, a lot of them with use cases around microtransactions, where people can send, for example.
But Nikos,
so that's especially that's something that would be especially relevant for developing countries.
But Nikos, I'll ask Nikos, is the reason the countries are developing because they don't have the right cryptocurrency, or are they developing because they don't have the right political ideas?
Well, look, coming from a country that has had all sorts of problems from the government, what I understand is the reason any country develops is mostly through the productive activities of the people that are a bit under the radar of the state. So, for example, what saved the Greek economy from the crisis, it was that when you go to cut your hair, you don't pay a receipt, or even you go to the doctor and it's under the table. So people are going to produce under any system. And the point is, if there is a system that can help them do that, that's good. The problem is when you take this technology, which is like Bitcoin, and you consider it the path to freedom. Like I've lost count how many people I've encountered who believed literally in 2014 that we're 5 years away from an anarcho-capitalist utopia because of Bitcoin. And they put it together. So they say Bitcoin, blockchain, 3D printing. This is the thing that's going to lead to. And again, here's why philosophy is important. Without the right ideas, there is no technology that can save you. Even if tomorrow Janina says, I have a spaceship and we're going to go to another planet and that's going to be libertarian land, if we don't have the right ideas, soon it's gonna crumble. But listen, we've run out of time. So Janina, thanks so much. For the end, do you want to tell us a bit about what you're currently doing and how people can follow your work?
Yes, so what's going to be especially interesting for the viewers is Governance Research's upcoming conference on coming Tuesday, 8th December. So Governance Research Institute aims to examine how blockchain technology can improve existing governance, be it of a country or of a company. And so it will be all kind of related governance topics. It will be a one-day conference, and I think we can put the link to it somewhere here.
Yeah, by the way, if people want to follow Janina on Twitter, check the latest tweet from Iron Center UK that announces the event. You can find her Twitter handle there, and you can follow her and you can find information about the Institute and about the work she's doing.
Yes, and they fit exactly to Ayn Rand's minarchism, that some people may know me from 2014 to 16, where I was co-founder of BitNation, where I try to promote it as something politically neutral that would fit together with existing systems and would also provide private alternatives where possible, where there is no such service in the respective area before. So that's how I used to promote it. Other people promoted it in different ways, saying it's all anarchist and anonymous and that stuff. But the whole thing fell apart. And since a couple of months ago, the right people have come together again with the right views and wanting to do it as it should have been, and not against any system, but seeing how anything could be improved with blockchain technology. So I think it would come close to what would be Ayn Rand's ideal of a minarchist society, where everything.
That wasn't her ideal, but thank you for your contributions, and we'll definitely check it out.
Thank you very much. So thank you, Jonathan. Thanks, Janina. Here's another good week that is over. All the best, and see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Razi.